I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today, I had this really interesting topic I was going to discuss that has to do with a bunch of cops that just got fired because they were all sleeping with the same lady. They were all hanging out and I guess getting it in and doing the oochie coochie and there's been some big fallout from this. A lot of people have they know about their story and they know their names, and also they are going to lose their jobs. And I thought that it would be interesting to talk about this from a professional standpoint, an economic standpoint, and just you guys saw just the other day. If you go to drboycetv.com, you'll see I did a podcast about how men need to understand that you are going to lose money if you can't control yourself when it comes to the ladies. If you are a guy that has to get it in with anything that looks good, or anybody that wants to do you a favor or two, if you know what I mean, then you're not going to have much money for very long. It's very hard for a man to sleep around with everything that moves and still have money. It's just hard, especially in a modern society where you could be accused of anything, where you're going to be perceived in a certain way. And then also the same thing will be true for women. You talk about baby mama, baby daddy scenarios. You got full babies daddies or something. It's very, very hard for you to get ahead economically in that situation because raising kids is expensive, and also reputational damage that can come from people kind of knowing all your business. Now, this is not me putting anybody on a pedestal. This is not me acting like anybody has to be perfect. This is really me kind of just talking about this from a strategic standpoint. Now, let me give you guys the story. Hit the thumbs up button as you come in. Please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up. Share, subscribe if you haven't done that yet. Also, someone says, Brandon says, let's talk about stocks. We will talk about stocks a little bit later. Go to the Black Financial Channel and I will do an assessment on stocks. Also, we have Stock Market Tuesdays. So if you'd like to learn about stocks, just go to boycewatkins.com and you can join my stock market investing class. I will tell you everything I need to know, and I will even give you a long list of all the stocks that I'm buying right now. So here we go. So here, I'm going to read this to you. This is from NBC. I sent the invitation to my wife, who's a relationship therapist, to get her perspective on some of this so you can hear from a woman's point of view. Also, I'll see if she's free to come on in. It says here on NBC, a Tennessee police department was in turmoil Tuesday following allegations that at least 5 male officers slept with a female officer both on and off the job. So far, 5 officers have been fired and 3 more have been suspended without pay as officials in the Nashville suburb of Vergne investigated the allegations against the 60-person police department. So there's 60 people on this police department, and apparently somebody snitched. Maybe the person who snitched is the person who wasn't invited to the party. They were having some wild, buddy. I read some of this stuff. They were getting it in. They were doing threesomes and all kinds of stuff and whatever, man. That's just life, I guess. And anyway, so 60 people on this department have now had their reputation as a department tarnished because there were apparently 5 of them who were all kind of like messing around with each other. And they kind of had a video, a picture of this really innocent looking white lady. I'm gonna try to find her picture. I mean, she looks super innocent. And then they had a picture of her with a whole bunch of dudes. And apparently, at least the way the media is kind of laying it out, she was, let's say, getting to know all of these men. Again, not judging, but it's like, whoa, okay. So anyway, let's see here. According to NBC, let me actually find her picture. I think I have her picture around. Let me see. For now, we'll just call her Becky, but we're going to give her a name in a minute. But here she is. This is her, and this is her and all of her colleagues, her co-workers that she got to know in a really friendly fashion. And she looks kind of like she looks sweet and innocent, right? I mean, look at that. Look at her face. She doesn't like, but man, woo, buddy. So anyway, I'm not just this funny. It's like, I don't know, this poor thing. They're gonna all need some therapy after this. And so these are a couple of the Black men that she likes. So she Black Lives Matter, right? And there were a couple of guys who are not Black, apparently, that were also getting in on the action. And literally, these are the images that they're sharing. They're sharing the image of this lady and a whole bunch of dudes. And it's interesting, right? So I'll read more of this to you, and then I'm actually going to share with you some stuff that I found in research on sleeping with people in the office and just kind of what that can do, what the risks are for that. But let me keep going. So they said here, according to the police, according to the mayor, quote unquote, the situation is unacceptable. And as soon as it was brought to our attention, it was immediately investigated and action was taken upon the individuals involved. Our top priority moving forward will include rebuilding the public's trust. The accounts of the police department were in an internal report obtained by NBC affiliate WSMV. The officers spoke about sharing cell phone photos of their genitals, sleeping with each other in the police station on duty, and taking part in Girls Gone Wild type parties. The actions of a few do not represent the department as a whole. Davis said that despite the firings and suspensions, we have sufficient staff to cover all of our patrol shifts. He said counselors have been brought in. They brought in counselors to help our workers, our officers, work through these circumstances. So they're bringing in the mental health counselors. I guess everybody on the job is traumatized. They are also, I guess, reaffirming to the public that your officers are going to actually, not just be screwing each other. They're not going to screw the public because they can't stop screwing each other. They're actually going to be out doing their job. I personally think that that's a little bit much, right? People, everybody. In fact, how many of you have sex every now and then? How many of you get to enjoy and partake in some sort of physical activity with another human being at some point? Give me a yes in the chat. Let's start there. I like to make complex points with simple questions. How many of you, got some last week, maybe the last month? Hopefully it hasn't been more than a year. If it's been more than a year, I'm gonna pray for you. But how many of y'all got some maybe in the last few days, few weeks? Okay. All right. So the reason I asked that simple question, you might say, well, Boyce, why would you ask such a dumb question? It could be because I'm a dumb person, but I don't think I'm that dumb. I think I'm, I have my moments, but I'm okay. I asked this question because the truth of the matter is that what people are doing in their personal life doesn't really make a big difference in their professional life. Like, the weird, sometimes these conversations get a little bit weird because sleeping with other people is something that everybody does, but we act like no one does it. Like no one really talks about it. It's like taboo, right? But really, if you think about it, if you think about it, without that, we wouldn't even exist. Like this is why we're here. This is, the procreation of other human beings. Like that's a pretty important part of life. In fact, there is no life without that, right? So in this case, what is clearly problematic is that there are certain risks that you take when you are getting it in on the job or getting it in with your coworkers, or you're getting it in to a point that is irresponsible for your body, for other people. For example, we don't know if any of these people were married. We don't know if any of these people have diseases. I mean, my Lord Jesus, if she's sleeping with everybody on the damn force, I don't think a smart man, married or single, would sleep with somebody that they know is sleeping with everybody on the force. Or if you remember back when Ime Udoka, anybody remember that, right? Ime Udoka was with the Celtics and the women liked him. The ladies liked him. He loved the ladies. And, and the problem with that is that, if you're picking people to kind of blend with in that way and they're getting around like that, you don't know what they're bringing into your life. Like you don't know, when I saw the Ime Udoka story, I thought about a guy named Winston Bennett, who was also affiliated with the Celtics temporarily, if I'm not mistaken. I know he played at the University of Kentucky with Rick Pitino, or he knew Rick Pitino. I think he went to work for him as an assistant for a little while. And Winston had an addiction. He was on ESPN. And when he was on ESPN, he talked about the fact that he slept with 90 women a month. Now, y'all do the math on that for me. 90 women a month. That's how many women he slept with. He slept with 90 women a month. And so that means 3 women a day, 3 per day. I don't understand the logic behind any woman who would want to sleep with a man who sleeps with 90 women a month. Like, just understand, you might think he's sexy. Here's the thing about Winston. He was tall, he was handsome, he was smart. He's 6'7". He's a basketball player, right? He played in the NBA, so maybe he had a little bit of money. And I get all that's attractive, but if you think about it from a logical standpoint, you lay down with somebody like that, you're tainting yourself, especially if you're his baby's mom or whatever. I remember in college, I remember a guy, there was this girl who was really pretty, and she dated one of the basketball players at the University of Kentucky. And And she said, and my friend, he liked girls, you know, we would talk about girls and stuff. And he said, yeah, man, so and so, she's single now. And I said, oh, did you sleep with her too? And he said, oh no, I'm not gonna sleep with her. I said, why not? He said, oh, because she had a baby with him, and we know that he's like tainted, if you know what I mean. I'm not trying to, you know, be judgmental or anything, but and it actually makes some degree of sense. I don't think that we talk about that kind of stuff enough. And you watch shows like Love and Hip Hop where people just do whatever with whoever. And another part of society that doesn't get discussed very often is how many people, you know, just live their best life, do whatever they want to do, you know, take part in this free society or whatever. And then they go to the doctor and they get some test results that are not exactly favorable, if you know what I mean. You know, they have consequences, and they're not going to tell anybody. They're not going to announce it. Like Eazy-E dies of AIDS, and nobody talks about the fact that he slept with thousands of women before he died. Or Magic Johnson gets HIV. It's like no one's realizing that there's a trail of thousands of people who are infecting other people who are, you know, out here, right? So in HBCUs have an STD problem. A lot of people don't talk about that. There's a big problem, and they're really all campuses. It's not just HBCUs, but I care about Black people, and that's what we talk about. So I think that generally speaking, that might be the part. That's the Uncle Boyce and me kind of popping in and kind of saying, you know, kind of think it through. You know, your body's a temple. Your body's valuable, and a lot of y'all will eat all the health food in the world, be at the gym every day, but don't think about whose body might be infecting your body. You know, I think all that has to tie in together. But again, I'm not going to get out here preaching, so let's not get into that. All right, so do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Now let's talk about the professional side of this. Let's talk about the economic side of this, how this kind of affects your money. So I found this interesting article on medium.com about sleeping with coworkers. Now I want everybody to give me a quick confessional. How many of you have ever been attracted to a coworker and either crossed the line or thought about it? Give me a yes in the chat. Go ahead and be honest. Stop lying. Tell me the truth. How many of you, I'm going to raise my hand because that happened to me one time. How many of you have ever felt like crossing the line with a coworker? Okay, I see some yeses in here. I don't see any no's yet. But here's where I want to start that conversation. That's actually quite natural. If you study, when I was in psychology class, when I was in college, I remember our psychology teacher explaining the things that attract human beings to other people. And I paid close attention because I think I was getting dumped by my girlfriend at the time. And then I understood why. Well, one thing that is a big attractor with human beings is what they call proximity. That is how close you are to them, how much you see them. If you see somebody, if there is a dude that you're in love with that lives across the country, and there's another equally handsome guy that you meet every day at the mailbox, and you are working on projects with him and spending hours and hours a day with this man, you're eventually going to be attracted to the man that you're talking to every day, not the man who lives far away. It's just like parenting. You know, like people think parents can be equal in the mind of a child if one parent lives across the country and the other one's in the house. Come on now. I mean, seriously, which parent do you think the child's going to be more connected to? The one that they see once a month, or the one that they see every single morning for breakfast, and then again in the afternoon when they come home from school that puts them to bed? Like, seriously, like which parent do you think the child's going to be more connected to? So proximity is a big deal. Well, remember, you live in a capitalist society where we were trained about 100 years ago after the Industrial Revolution. They said, how do we brainwash people and get them to believe that they're supposed to spend all their time at work? How do we get mothers out of the house? Instead of spending time with their kids, we need them to spend time in the factory. So what we do is we'll push these movements that'll make women feel like you're a loser if you're not out working. Personally, I like being at home. I work. My wife's office is like 10 feet away. My kids are right upstairs. I like being at home. I don't want to be in a factory. I don't want to be in an office. I don't want to get up every day and leave the people I love for 10 hours a day so that I can make a little bit of money. I want to be right here at home. That's where I'm living my best life. So they convinced you to spend most of your time at your job. They wanted you away from your husband and kids so you could be at work. They wanted the husband to be, solely dedicated to making money and working for the companies or whatever. So what happened is you created this space where people are spending extensive amounts of time together, and more time with these other people than with their spouse or their boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. And these relationships naturally form. This attraction naturally occurs. Why is that a little bit of a trap? Well, people talk about the trap. Rappers love to rap about the trap, right? Well, let me rap to y'all about the trap real quick. I'm about to rap. It ain't going to rhyme, though, but I'm about to rap to you about the corporate trap. The corporate trap is this. You take all these healthy human beings who are naturally attracted to each other, human beings that are put together in a large group are just going to reproduce. Just like if I put a bunch of a bunch of does and bucks together, male deers and female deer, they're going to have some baby deer. If I put a bunch of male bears and female bears together, they're going to have baby bears. If I put a bunch of male mosquitoes and female mosquitoes together, they're going to make more mosquitoes, right? Every species does this. This is natural. This is not, you not having discipline and you not, you being abnormal or you being a pervert. No, you're supposed to be horny. That's the way God made you. That's why there are 8 billion people on the planet, is because a whole lot of people have been doing this since the beginning of time. So the corporate trap is this. They put all of these people together in these spaces, right, where the men are coming in looking handsome and sharp in their suits, and the women are coming in with tight dresses and whatever. And then they have you sitting there working together for hours and hours and hours, sharing these, with these shared goals and visions and ideas. And you're talking to these people all the time. At some point, you're going to be attracted to each other, and then nature will take its course, right? Now, the trap of it all is that now we live in this society that, because we think that we're just so much better than the animals, we end up believing that you can create these environments where people aren't going to do what human beings do, right? Professor Ken Sapolsky at Stanford, he's a very smart guy. He's like a hippie, he has a big beard, and I love listening to his lectures. He's super smart. He was explaining that the human brain is only about 3 to 5% different from the brain of an animal. The only difference is that you have this thing called, I think it's called the prefrontal cortex. I'm not a brain expert, but the prefrontal cortex gives you that ability to engage in higher level reasoning, like to play chess and do calculus and think strategically and think long term, right? Dogs don't have that. Dogs can't think long term. Dogs just live in the moment. Like, you put food in front of a dog, he's not going to eat a little bit and save some for later. He's not thinking about the future. He's going to eat it all right now. If you put something that looks good in front of a dog, he's going to go ahead and do what dogs do. It's going to be doggy style all day long, because that's what he's thinking. That's what he does. Dogs are into instant gratification. Some human beings get into instant gratification, but those who actually use that part of the brain that separates you from an animal, they actually engage in some sort of strategic long-term planning and some level of discipline, some sort of delayed gratification. These are things that can occur if you process that, but you have to be intentional about that. Right? You have to be intentional. If you're not intentional, then you're going to start doing what dogs do. You're going to start, if the food looks good, you're going to eat it. If the lady looks good, you're going to sleep with her. If you got money in your pocket, you're going to spend it. Your ability, your desire to save long term is, or to prepare for the future, is going to be shot. And this is actually encouraged in our society. We have a society where in music, for example, they encourage you to engage in lots of instant gratification. Just get it in, do it now, do whatever, right? And then it leads to consequences. Like, down in Atlanta, you got this whole RICO charge from guys who decided they wanted to engage in some illegal activity and then rap about it. You have scenarios where people go broke because they get their money and they go spend it, or maybe they have a bunch of baby mama, baby daddy problems because when they got in the moment, they weren't able to be intentional enough to think long term. So you end up, next thing you know, you got a baby mama that you hate, or a baby daddy that disrespects you, and then you act like somebody else did it when you were the one that was actually there having sex. Okay, but I'm not making fun of you. I'm not dogging you out. I'm just telling you that society makes you that way. They push you in that direction because, again, another part of the corporate trap is that they want to trick you into instant gratification or making decisions based on instantaneous fulfillment, right? Like it looks good, go get it. You got money in your pocket, you're in the mall, you like that outfit, just buy it. Worry about it. Worry about the consequences later. Right. I remember hearing in music, I heard a song, Yo Gotti, in one of his lyrics, he said, we gonna ball today, F tomorrow, right? Like, forget the future. We're gonna ball it out today, right? So the world encourages you to do that. The downside is that if you do that and you go into like the workplace, you're gonna lose everything that you've ever worked for. You will lose every nickel, you will lose your reputation, you damn sure is gonna lose your job. A lot of y'all got sons that are super smart. Your son's going to grow up. Some of y'all got sons that are smart and handsome. Deadly combination. Those women love it. The white women love it. The black men, we are the sexiest damn creatures on the freaking planet. We are. Even me, I know how sexy I am. I had a white lady I kid you not, I'm not making this up. There's a white lady I went to graduate school with. I never talked to white women. No disrespect if you're white. I like black women. But this white lady, I kid you not, we graduated from school together. She got a job. She was this professor, like that went to church and stuff every Sunday. And we got on the phone one day and she was calling me just to kind of catch up. And she starts talking. I kid you not, this is how professors flirt with each other, by the way. So she says something like, she starts talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson. Right. And I'm like, why are we talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson? Like, I didn't bring him up. And she's like, ooh, that Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's so sexy. She said, I would F him in a minute. Right. And I said, oh, wow. So she's signaling to me I would get down with a black dude. Right. So I just changed the subject. I was like, I'm not, you might get down with a black dude, but I wouldn't get down with you. Ain't nothing you got over there that I want. And that's not only is that not of interest to me, to no disrespect. If you're white, I don't hate white people. I just love black people. So I want to make sure I'm clear about that. But not only am I not attracted to you, but I don't shit where I eat. I'm not gonna sleep with somebody in a space or scenario where that is going to cost me professionally because I don't work too damn hard to get to where I am. At that time, I had a good job at Syracuse, making good money, and I said, "And you ain't gonna mess it up. I can go get if I want to go get some. I can go. I can go off campus and go get some." When I got my job at Syracuse, first thing my father said to me was, "Don't you f nothing on that campus. No students, no professors, no coworkers, no nothing." And I didn't. And I saw a black man that was the same age as me, who slept with a student on campus who was 24 years old. She wasn't like a baby, but she was in his class, so it wasn't cool. And next thing you know, she charged him 6 months after the relationship ended. She accused him of sexual misconduct, which I don't know what that is exactly. I'm still figuring that out. But the charges were dropped, but it didn't matter. His reputation was destroyed. They put him on TV like he was O.J. Simpson. I'll give you his name. It's out there. His name was Adam Banks. And I watched this happen. And when I saw that happen, it made me think about what my daddy told me. Like don't, you just, so here's what I'm thinking, right? With these cops kind of doing what they were doing, I'm not here to judge all that. People do what they're going to do. Half of y'all probably doing stuff that you'll never tell anybody about. And I'm not judging any of that. But I do kind of, it makes me reflect on the amount of strategy that people have to have, particularly black men, when you're talking about what you do in the workplace. If you remember when Ime Udoka slept with that lady on his job, they didn't even put the lady's name out. They presented her like she was a victim. Like you are the victim of a black male penis. Like somehow the thing that you desired, the thing that you asked for, the thing that you wanted, you texting him saying, come on over to my house, Ime. And somehow he's the perpetrator, you're the victim. Like that's some old slavery stuff. Like that's literally like something you might have seen in 1842. So the idea that she was seen as a victim is not just disturbing. It's so disturbing that it doesn't make me angry. It's so disturbing that it doesn't make me angry. Why does it not make me angry? Well, because you live in America. What made you think you live in a country where that kind of thing isn't going to happen? Where you think you're not black anymore? Really, the minute you start thinking that way, the minute you start running around talking about I'm not black, I'm OJ, well, that's when something happens. That's when you get your Negro wake up call. Shout out to Paul Mooney. So ultimately, this wake up call, and now in this case, they're not just calling out the men though. And I like that. I think it's interesting. I feel like this is probably more embarrassing for her than it is for them. I mean, if you look at this picture, you see her, the innocent looking white lady. And then they're like, they're literally showing all the men that she slept with, which kind of makes her look like the town hole, to be honest with you. But let's be honest. I don't know if anybody would kind of want this picture of themselves out there. That's worse than a mugshot. So they're all getting dismissed. And I just want to encourage you to warn your sons. This is one of the reasons why I would talk about this, because I like to talk about real stuff. These are the things that are outside the lines that will definitely affect your economic possibilities and opportunities. Can you imagine if your black son grows up and sleeps with a lady on the job, if it gets misinterpreted? Here's the thing: when it gets misinterpreted and the heads of the company, when corporate finds out, they're not going to try to figure out who did what all the time. They might do an investigation, but they're not looking into who's right and who's wrong. They're just going to say, okay, fire both of them, because bringing all this stuff into the job just isn't cool. And I think that's what a big part of the issue is. Now, I did read an article. I'm going to actually share a couple more thoughts on this, and then I'm going to bounce out. But by the way, do me a favor, if you could, please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, share, subscribe. I have a new book called The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. You're welcome to take a look. It is a definitive guide for any black family that wants to actually accomplish generational wealth. It's 10 simple rules I laid out. and I explain them all and break them all down. So you're welcome to take a look. Just go to boycewatkins.com. Also on the 13th, we're doing a financial slumber party where at 11 p.m. we're going to gather in our pajamas and get on a Zoom, and I'm going to spend 2 hours making you the best investor in your house. Everything is yours for life. All the recordings are yours. There are special bonuses included. There are slides that you will have access to, and also you can bring your whole family, so you don't have to pay for multiple family members. Pay one time, and everybody in the family has access to that material for life. So feel free to come there. The curriculum I'm giving is called Stock Market Decoded, and you're going to benefit from it. So if you'd like to join us, just go to boycewatkins.com and take a look. All right. So here's a couple things about sleeping with coworkers that was really interesting. Let's see here, and I'm wondering where my wife is at. I thought my wife was going to pop in and give her 2 cents, but let me see. I'm going to check to make sure she got my message. It says it's kind of difficult to rule out coworkers from the dating pool. After all, we spend most of our waking hours at our workplace. This is where we make friends. This is where we accomplish things together or go through a crisis together. Now, this is an article in The Median by Octavia Morrison. So first thing she does is explain that these workplace relationships are quite natural. They happen all the time. There's nothing to be ashamed of if you get caught being attracted to a coworker. That is extremely, extremely natural. Now, how you handle it is up to you. So here's some things, here's some rules she laid out. And I actually kind of like what she says here. I think it's kind of good. And she says, number one, know what you signed up for. She said, with every relationship, you need to know what you are after. And it's best to deal with a workplace romance expecting as little as possible. She says, I'm not saying that it can't turn into a big love, but if you expect just to have some fun times and bonding, it might save you from setting yourself up for failure with too high expectations. Set some rules and discuss what you both want to see, discuss what you both see. If it's mutually agreed fun, there shouldn't be any problems, but you need to get a handle early on any discrepancies between yourself. It can get complicated because ... coworkers. What does that mean? Well, that means sometimes people will go crazy on you. You know, you might drop something on him that's real good and might be the best he ever had. And next thing you know, he's like, emailing you like crazy and begging you for another opportunity. And you might be ready to move on, but maybe he's not. And then that can cause tremendous problems on the job. So if you do break that rule, I think understanding what it is really important. That's a good point. Believe it or not, the one really good conversation I had on that topic was with Al Sharpton, and I remember when Al Sharpton was he's believe it or not, I don't agree with Al Sharpton politically. I don't like a lot of what some of these black political bosses do, and so politically I'm not on the Sharpton page. But let me just say this: I sat with this man for hours and hours and hours about 13 years ago when I used to go to New York and sit with him on his radio show, and I had the most fascinating conversations with this man. First of all, let me just tell y'all this. Again, I don't like any of Al Sharpton's politics. Well, most of it I don't like, not all of it. I have an issue with some of the trickery that goes on, but this man is smart. He is a genius, and he tells amazing stories. Like it'll be a story like he'll be like, it's almost like how they have those jokes like there was a rabbi, a dog, and a monkey that walked in a bar. Like he'll be like, I was in a restaurant and Chris Brown walks in and Michael Jordan is sitting with Charles Barkley. And then I saw Denzel Washington over at the other table. Like he tells these kinds of stories and they're just the most fascinating stories. And I would just sit there for hours and just listen. It was really interesting. And one thing I remember we were talking about was, just relationship stuff. And he was talking about a friend of his who was an older guy who had a relationship with a young girl. And this guy was like maybe 50, 60 years old, 55, 60 years old. He was married and she was maybe a 25-year-old cute thing that he decided he wanted to hang out with. So, well, the cute thing was only with him because of money, right? And because he's old and married and stuff. And then something happened. I don't know if he lost his money or she just got tired of him, but she moved on. And this man was heartbroken and devastated and all torn apart. And what he said was, I don't understand why you're reacting this way because you know what it was and she knew what it was. And apparently he didn't know what it was. Apparently maybe he thought that this was going to turn into some sort of lifelong romance or something, which it wasn't. She was with him for his money. And I think it's important to kind of understand like what it is and make sure that the other person understands what it is, because if you're misaligned, then that can cause problems. And if that's happening at work, it's like bringing a big nuclear stink bomb to your job. Like it can just really ruin, the situation you're in. If you think about building a career, like if you're a corporate type, these things take 10, 15, 20 years to build. And it just kind of sucks to know that all that could go down the drain because of one moment or two moments of kind of not having the sexual discipline you need to have. The second piece of advice they give that I really like is separate it from work. I think that's the best advice. I mean, she said the good thing about a workplace affair is that you can spend a lot of time together, even when you're not having sex. But the thing is that but the same thing is the bad thing about it. You might spend too much time together and you stop having a life outside the workplace. Now, so it sounds like what she's saying is make sure you have a life outside the workplace. What I would say, I interpret that statement to mean that it's probably best if you are attracted to a coworker to do your business when you're not at the job. Like if you're at the job, then the company can then say you were having sex at corporate headquarters or you were sleeping with somebody on your desk and that's nasty. That's very different from, having your personal life that's separated from your professional life. Now, I've got a special guest in here. My wife, Dr. Alicia, is in the green room. How you doing, babe?
Hey, I finally made it on here with you. How you doing?
Doing well. Looking good, sexy.
Thank you. You're not so bad yourself over there.
Thank you.
That smile you got.
Yeah. Well, with you
being about?
Well, we're talking about that. I told you about the topic earlier about the cops that were apparently they were having these orgies and stuff. I mean, that's what it makes it sound like. These cops. Can you see the picture?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these cops were this white girl was apparently getting it in with a bunch of coworkers, and they all got fired. According to NBC, they were suspended, I guess, pending investigation, and then they investigated, and they did a deep investigation, and they found out that that they were doing stuff that probably shouldn't be done in a police station, and next thing you know, she was they're all out the door. And I was reading an article. And I'd like to get your thoughts on some of this because you are a relationship therapist. You talk to couples all the time that deal with all kinds of stuff. And one of the things that I was reading was this article on the media about workplace relationships. And the first two tips they gave was to know what you signed up for, kind of know what it is so you don't get misaligned. 2, separate it from work if possible. 3 is obvious. Don't shout it from the rooftops. You ain't got to tell everybody your business. But then also, it's not just you not shouting it out. It's the person that you're with, because once you share that experience with another person, it's not just your story anymore. It's both of your stories, and you can't control what other people share. And you've seen people, like I just think about, for example, I remember when, this wasn't workplace, but I remember when Umar had that thing with the conscious stripper, and anybody remember the conscious stripper back in the day? And she was doing all these YouTube interviews about like what they did in the bedroom and all that, and I just kind of think situations like that, I don't know, I really see it as a violation of trust when somebody is talking about this personal experience that you had with another person. But it's all kind of fair game. Like this kind of thing has happened, and if you have something to lose and they don't, then it can become very embarrassing for you. What are your thoughts?
Oh gosh, kissing and telling. It's just tacky, right? To just to be in a relationship with someone, it goes sour, and then that person just spreads all your business all over the place. And unfortunately, I don't think that there's anything you can do to stop it. Like, there's no way. That's just the risk you take. I mean, it's interesting that article said you got to know what you're getting into. That's the risk you take, that someone is just gonna just throw all your business out there. It makes it so complicated for people, particularly people who are in the public light. It's really difficult for them, and probably even more so now because social media, everybody just like from the gut to the mouth, everybody just says it all on social media. So it's really hard to keep your private business private. I feel like this is part of the reason why so many individuals are so lonely, because it's really difficult to know, especially when you're famous and you're well known. It's hard to know if someone like really likes you, or if they like you to get ahead, or if they're manipulating you. It is really difficult and complicated, not even just for famous people, but for anybody. You're on the job. It makes sense that you would fall in love with somebody on the job. You spend what, 8 hours, let's say 8 hours working with somebody, and this is someone that you have a lot in common with because you're doing the same job and you can get to know them. So it makes sense that you could fall for someone at work. Particularly, remember those Christmas office parties where everybody gets drunk and it all goes wild. This is way before.
And I feel like that's white people stuff. I feel like black people, we grow up and our parents tell us don't get drunk at those office parties. Like it's when you forget that you black, you know what I'm talking about? Everybody know what I'm talking about. Like people that just forget that they're black and they get too comfortable. And then, but they remember what you did. I had when I was at Syracuse, there was a guy he was trying to get a PhD, and he went to one of the parties. He went to a conference, and they were serving liquor, and I think he had a drinking problem. He got drunk and just acted a complete ass. And next thing I know, they were putting him out. They put him out of the program because apparently he did maybe at least what people seem to be saying was that maybe a Cuba Gooding Jr. type incident occurred where he got a little drunk, touched a woman the wrong way, or was too aggressive with women, and next thing you know, he was out. Like his whole career done.
Yeah, when you're in a PhD program, you just need to keep a low profile anyway.
Well, even if he were working there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's professionalism. Is it professional to be sleeping around with half the men at your job on the job? So you're supposed to be working and your company is paying you to do a job and you're spending that time getting it on with everybody. Like they're not paying you for orgies. I think that's probably protect and serve, but not quite like that. I think that's the problem. Like, I guess if they had listen, adults are adults. If they want to have an orgy, they got to do it off the clock, right? They got to coordinate the schedules and do it off the clock away from the job. And I mean, who cares what happens outside of your job? So, but I think probably the reason why they were fired is because they were using their work time. You're supposed to be working and doing their job, but they weren't.
Well, let's hop into like the next question I'm going to ask you then. And by the way, this is my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. Her website is coachingwithdralicia.com if you want to see what she does in terms of her work with clients and stuff like that. And she's written some good books and stuff like that. And everybody, could you please do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button? And I want to remind everybody that this podcast is on Spotify, also Apple. If you go to Apple or Spotify and look for the Dr. Boyce Breakdown, you can find all of our episodes there if you want to listen to it in your car. So let me hop into another area that I know that you specialize in, which is addiction. When I saw, when I saw this image, I don't know. In my mind, it's like that old school porno music coming out, womp 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 womp. Like you can see all of them, and because they were talking about these parties they were having, where everybody was getting some, and it's like a bunch of dudes and one lady. And so she's kind of like the female Ime Udoka or something. I have no idea. But anyway, so at what point, I'm wondering, at what point do you get to the point where you say maybe she just has an addiction, right? And because I remember you defining addiction, I'm going to read some symptoms of addiction, which I'm sure you know, but I want to explore that with you, with you as an expert and a specialist in this area. And addiction is defined according to verywellmind.com. I guess this is from the National Institutes of Health. They said it's defined by an inability to stop, like you get to work and you still want to, do whatever at work. Changes in mood, appetite, and sleep continuing despite the negative consequences, like you might get fired and put on national TV. Denial, engaging in risky behaviors, like sleeping with 18 people on the job. Feeling preoccupied with the substance or behavior. Legal and financial problems. Losing interest in the others you used to enjoy. Secrecy. And also you had talked about, I remember one time talking about if it affects your work or affects your job or affects your daily function. Can you kind of talk about that as to whether or not there's kind of an addiction conversation that has to be had in this situation?
Now, remember we talked about shopping addiction. Do you remember that? And it was like I don't know if you have it. If you have it, you should pull it up because there were 7 criteria for addictions in general. And we spoke about it. I don't have those notes in front of me, but yeah, we talked about that in terms of addiction. So and when you can't control yourself, so it's a thought process. So there's there's a obsession. Obsession is a thought. You can't stop thinking about it. It's like whatever the addiction is, like your whole entire life, all day long, from the time you wake up in the morning, you're like, how can I get my fix? How can I get my fix? And sometimes it costs money, sometimes it doesn't. So your whole day is revolved around getting your fix, enjoying your fix, and then looking for your next fix. So you're obsessed with it in your head. The second criteria is compulsion. So not only are you thinking about it all the time, but you can't stop yourself from carrying it out. So those are behaviors that you do. So let's say it is a drug addiction. It's like, okay, I'm going to go over to my mom's house. I'm going to mow her grass because I want to make sure I get my money so that I can get my next fix. And then I'm going to go over to cousin so-and-so's house and see if I can give them a sad story so that I can get money from them so I can get my afternoon fix. And then at night, so it's an obsession and compulsion, and you're so entrenched in it that's why you lose your job, because you can't focus on the job because you're always concentrated on this one thing. And the thing with addiction is that, of course, it's related to trauma, because trauma does not mean something bad happened to you, right? So all of us are going to come across pain in our lives. So pain, we cannot stop pain from happening in our lives, right? It's how we cope with that. We don't need to suffer, though. Suffering is optional, but the pain is not optional. We always have something that happens in our lives that we wish hadn't happened, and it's always good to connect to those feelings related to that pain, right? However, what addiction does is that it mitigates that pain process, right? It mitigates it. So instead of thinking about what's really bothering you, it's too painful, too scary, too disturbing. You're not used to talking about your feelings or connecting with your feelings. You mitigate it. So mitigating means disconnecting from it. And you say, you know what? I'm going to use drugs so that I don't have to feel this pain anymore. So substance abuse and even other types of addictions, it's there so that you don't feel what you need to feel. It's an avoidance. So very avoidant people tend to be more vulnerable to having some sort of addiction.
Well, what's interesting is with this cop who got fired from the job, it's interesting. They interviewed her husband, who's a park ranger, and they're kind of insinuating that he wasn't even aware that all this was happening, that she communicated they had an open marriage. And they're saying that the husband didn't know anything about it. I don't know, but
so either he was in denial, which is really interesting, because suppose she does have this sex addiction, the people around you, they also play a role in it. They can, what do they call it? Enable. And denial is a form of enabling, because it's like, you don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I'm just either, it's, blatant denial. Like, I don't want to confront these issues. Or maybe he just doesn't know. Maybe he really is in the dark, which I doubt. I doubt it. I doubt he had some sort of inkling that something wasn't quite right with her. Or she wasn't being transparent. That's another thing about addictions. It's like growing up, if you've always been told you were terrible or you were bad or you were giving messages that you were less than and you have low self-esteem and all of that, you learn how to cover it up by forming this veneer, by forming this kind of lie. You live a lie. You learn at an early age to live this lie and to have this front cover. Like, how many times have we seen people who were like, wow, they were actually presenting as if they were happy, but deep down inside they weren't. Remember, we talk about smile, smile. That happens early in childhood when you grow up with a lot of shame and not feeling worthy. You put forth this fake image that everything is. Look at those pictures. Everything is okay, and really underneath, it's not okay. So yeah, that's sad.
Well, you know what? I think that just generally, from a a logic standpoint, one of the key points I make, the thing that kind of inspired me to really want to talk about this topic is just the fact that I suspect in it. The reason I threw the word addiction in there is because it seems that an addiction would be the only thing that would be strong enough to make you risk losing everything, in order to get something that you can readily get away from your job, right? Like if I was told that, you can eat chocolate whenever you want, you just can't eat it at work. I'm not going to eat chocolate at work, and now maybe if I think I can get away with it and not get caught, then maybe that's another thing. But even then, I'm going to say, well, why risk it? Why take that chance? But the fact that, that this thing, because the job, this is the thing. The job is not the only place where you can get some. Like there's plenty of places outside of work where it can happen. But, when you're putting it all on the line, and I cannot imagine. I mean, you talk about needing some mental health counseling. I mean, this lady, all these people in that picture need to come see you, including her husband, in my opinion, because I can only imagine how they must feel right now, how embarrassed they must be. They have relationships with other people. I remember one time, I had a friend who, what the hell? I'll just say it. It was back in the day when I used to be friends with Mark Lamont Hill. We're not friends anymore. He's kind of politically gotten a little bit weird. But back in the day, like I'm talking about 12 years ago, Mark called me, and Mark was in the on all the blogs that day, right? And let me tell you why. I wonder if I could find anything. But anyway, the reason he was on the blogs was because he had gone out and hung out with Star Jones. And you remember Star Jones?
I remember her, yeah. Star Jones.
Yeah, so Mark had went out and just hung out with Star, and they had I guess sat down and had drinks or whatever. And I think Star liked him, so I have no idea. I don't care about that stuff. But I don't think Star Jones is attractive. But anyway, so all these blogs had like took pictures of them as they were leaving like this restaurant. So suddenly the next day, everybody's like, "Oh, Star Jones has a new man. It's she was spotted with this guy, Mark Lamont Hill, and whatever." And I remember that Mark, and I was like, I said, "Wow, that must have been uncomfortable for you because she is not a pretty lady." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not attracted to her, but she was offering to buy me lots of stuff." And I was like, "Okay, well, so she was trying to be your sugar mama." And I said, so how does it feel to have everybody talking about, the fact that they think you're dating this lady? And he said it sucks because he said I have situations like that I have to manage, So apparently I guess he had, women that liked him or whatever. And and it's like, and I think about this, right? And I think about these people, not just remember if they're all sleeping with each other on the job, those aren't the only people they're sleeping with. Chances are, it sounded like they were doing some wild stuff at the job, and I'm really wondering, like, how many of them were married, how many of them had girlfriends or boyfriends, how many of them had situations out there that they, where their partners are like, what is this, And so I don't know if anybody can imagine that. How would you feel if you were wrapped up in something like this? Not that you would be. But and then it's like all over the news, and now you got to explain that to you. I mean, there's a lot of fallout that occurs, like when stuff like this gets sort of thrown out in the open.
Man, you think you're getting away with something, and you ain't getting away with a thing. It's all gonna come back and bite you in the butt. And karma is something else. It's a mother.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Okay, so Dr. Alicia, who's been seeing clients for a long time, what would you say to a couple? If this couple came to see you, if this woman, let's say that her husband, for whatever reason, wants to work out the marriage, and and just doesn't want to lose his wife, and they come see you, and they tell you this story, and the first thing they do is they show you this headline of his wife getting it in with 2-3 black dudes at work plus 3 or 4 random other people. What do you say to that couple? Like, how would you even begin the process of counseling a couple like this?
Well, I mean, you have to assess whether they are willing and able to do the work to work through something like this. So it would have to be nothing short of a rededication to each other. Like, are you willing For the hurt partner, we'll just say the husband is the hurt partner. For the hurt partner, you identify you're the hurt partner, you were betrayed, you probably have a ton of anger related to that. I'm certain he's real angry with her because of what she did. So I would definitely deal with those feelings. For the unfaithful partner, it's an honest conversation about if they're willing to rededicate themselves to the marriage. And you have to explore all of that and process all of that and have a conversation about what that would look like. What would it look like if you rededicated yourself to your marriage? Because clearly everything that you've done is in complete violation. Now, if she came to treatment and she was not being transparent, not opening up, not willing to explore what led her to want to step out on her marriage in this way, if she wasn't willing to address any of those issues, I would be concerned. Because think about what the hurt partner is thinking. Okay, if I go to counseling, what you're thinking is, can I trust my wife? In this case, can I trust my wife to rededicate themselves to me? Is this person trustworthy? Can I trust this person again? I mean, that's the big question. Like, if I were to forgive this person, and it's a process, forgiveness is a process, right? If I were to forgive this person, can I trust them, and will they do it again? I mean, that's really the question hurt partners feel. And it has to be a conversation. Listen, I love working with couples who want to be together, who want to work together, who want to put in the work and rededicate themselves, and they want to explore, they want to be transparent, they want to be apologetic, they want to be accountable, they feel remorse. Like, I love working with couples like that because there's hope that they'll stay together. But I don't really take the stance where all couples need to be together. Not all marriages need to be not all people need to be married, and not all couples need to stay together and should stay together. I'm there for the process. Even if they end up at the end of the process figuring out that it's best that they live separate lives, because you have to have a conversation with yourself. You have to go within and you have to figure out, okay, do I want to live my life like this with this person, or do I not want to live my life? Like, some self-actualization needs to happen in this process. Like, how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if you have an STD, or if, they're going to the park? How do you know if it's the park or they're going out messing around again? Like, that sort of stress. So on the other side of a big violation like this, there can be reconciled. You can reconcile. But on the other side, you can just forgive your partner and move on and go your own separate ways. I'm there for the process. The end result, it's up to every individual adult. You make up your mind how you want to live your life.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, it's interesting to me. Somebody made a comment in the chat that they hope that they don't have kids. I can only imagine what the kids would go through to find out about this. And I also would say that, going back to that addiction piece, I would almost think that, that this was not her best moment. I was reading the story and they talked about her getting drunk at the parties and kind of stuff getting wild at some of these parties or whatever. And I almost feel like that makes me just wonder if it's not even a matter of saying, like, hey, are you willing to fix this and stop doing this? I would even almost assume that you can't stop. I would just say, okay, it sounds to me like you have an addiction, get treatment, or I can't, I'm not doing this relationship, right?
Oh yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. Yeah, I mean, I've had couples a lot of times where there's a scenario where one partner has a full-on addiction, like a drinking addiction. And it's just like, are you willing, for the sake of your relationship, to address these issues with your addiction, with your drinking addiction? Are you willing to do that? And there are many people who say, no, I'm not willing to give up drinking for my marriage. you know, and you go from
Yeah.
there.
Well, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? I'll summarize by saying I advise anybody to understand that if you do something like this, you're taking a big chance. I think that you should also talk to your kids about it. My father talked to me about sleeping with people on the job when I got my first job. And I think as a parent, you'd be smart to do that because I think that our kids, like your son is going to have, he's maybe a little naive about how the world works and maybe thinks that as long as he's not doing anything wrong, then it's okay. So you get a young guy on a job or whatever, and pretty girls are hitting on him or whatever. Things are going to happen. And I think that to at least put that in his ear to understand that you're going to get a different type of scrutiny from the white girl. They're not going to look at the white girl the way they look at you. Even the white male is not going to be seen the same way as you. I think that's a good way to prepare your son for. In fact, I'm almost a believer that black men should not even be in the workplace of companies run by white people. Not because we can't get jobs, but because there's so much frustration that comes with it.
It's
So
hostile.
yeah,
It's a hostile environment.
yeah, Mike.
A lot
Everything.
of times, not across the board, but a lot of times.
Right. You're dealing with microaggressions, glass ceilings. You don't get the same opportunities. You're not getting paid what you deserve. So I'm a big believer in black men at least having a plan B. I think that as black men, we should be the ultimate investors. We should be the ultimate entrepreneurs. We should be the ultimate side hustle men, so that you always have options. In a negotiation, you can't control what other people do, but you can control whether you have options and what you can walk away from. So as if I have options, I don't have to control what you do. I just walk away from the things I don't like and I walk toward the things that I do like. And if you want me to stick around, you have to give me a deal that's worthwhile, that beats out the other options that I have. And you have too many black men that go into the economy that don't have any options. So you end up dealing with this nonsense. And then you go to work, you're this handsome black man and everybody's fascinated about the black male and the black male penis and all that. Let's just keep it honest. And next thing you know, you end up looking like a predator and you didn't even do nothing wrong. That's the part that I think is really, really interesting. So I would just say be careful, everybody. Just, be thoughtful and strategic about this stuff. This stuff does affect your outcomes, your success, your wealth, your health, all these other things. So just teach your sons to be smart, and your daughters too, of course. Daughters too. I mean, it's not just gender specific. So anyway, babe, I'm gonna let you get the last word. Do you have any final thoughts before we bounce out? If you could, everybody, please hit the thumbs up button. And also, Dr. Alicia's website is coachingwithdralicia.com. So you can feel free to go to her website, find out more about what she does. My website is boycewatkins.com. If you'd like to learn about our financial slumber party we're having on the 13th, we're going to cover stock market decoded. That's going to be fun. Alicia's going to be there.
I'm going to be there. Yay. I didn't know I was invited. That's cool. I got invited to the
You are invited. I told everybody to wear their pajamas, and we're going to talk about stock market stuff at 11 o'clock at night on Friday the 13th.
Oh, I got to find some pajamas to wear.
Well, why don't we wear those pajamas? Do we have
those red ones on? You got your red ones?
I think I do. I don't know. I'm going to look for
I'll find them for you.
So anyway, if you'd like to join us for our financial slumber party, we're actually going to go through a curriculum I have called Stock Market Decoded. And you will be, by the time we're done, you'll be the best investor in your family. I guarantee that. And also remember, if you pay for yourself, you don't have to pay for anybody else in your family. You can bring your kids, bring your spouse, whoever, right? So make it a family thing. It's buy one, get 5 free. So last point, Dr. Alicia, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts with addiction is just that if you are married and you have children, you owe it to your marriage, you owe it to the household to get, if you have a mental health issue, you owe it to them to make sure that all of that is together, right? So you have to show up for your family healthy in a way that's productive, or you can be very destructive to your family. Also, if you have an addiction and you have a family and you're married, you owe it to those individuals, not only to yourself, but to those individuals who are depending on you. You are, to be married, you are 50%, you are half of a relationship where the other partner needs you to show up in a certain way so that you can run your household. It's like running a business. And if you are impaired in any way, you owe it to these people who love you, who depend on you and who count on you to get yourself together. Now, if you're not willing to do any of that thing, all of that soul searching and that growth and that pain, if you're not willing to open yourself up to pain, remember, pain doesn't have to mean that you suffer, but pain means you need to grow. If you're not open to grow, then you probably should just be alone. So it's something to think about when you get into relationships. People count on you and they need you. And so many excellent, wonderful things can happen on the other end of that if you get your mental health and all of your addictions together.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you very much, Babe, for joining us today. It was very nice to have you. And we do a podcast called Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. This wasn't an official Pillow Talk, but I wanted to invite her in so we could get some other perspectives on this very interesting topic. And in case you want to talk more about financial stuff and stock market stuff, I'll pop into the Black Financial Channel at some point today, and we'll kind of talk about what's happening in the market. You guys know I'm here with you every day, and we're always talking about Black stuff, but mostly economic stuff. But you'd be surprised how many different areas affect your economic outcomes. So my goal is to go wherever the conversation takes us. So be smart, be strategic, be careful, and that's how you succeed. So God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day. And thank you again, Babe, for joining us. I appreciate it. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.